Is everyone good today? Thank you first, right? Hands to yourself, etc. As you know, the track meet is coming up very, very soon. So, not this weekend, but next weekend, April 16th, is the track meet. And then, at the track meet, there will be cookies, right? We all know there will be cookies at the track meet, so I hope to see you guys there, right? Okay, now we're going to do a warm up. So get a big circle, okay? Get a big circle, guys.
It's such an antiquated old name, or old term, I should say, but it's used way too frequently, and I think people have kind of become numb to kind of the real kind of meaning of it, or the kind of the negative connotation to it. So it's a word that's still out there surprisingly with many generations, and it is. It's kind of a cringe factor word, but I think, with different campaigns and different education, hopefully that will cease to be there.
I think it is hurtful and it is misused, and I just cannot stand the word. In fact, I created a little business card once that I used to hand out if I heard the word, because sometimes it's difficult, especially if it's somebody you know well and it's a friend and they've used it incorrectly, to call them on it.
Well, if you look it up, the meaning isn't as bad as it sounds. And if you ask a lot of parents with disabilities, kids with disabilities, some of them don't really have a problem with it, but it depends how it's used.
Disgrace against.
Disgrace? You don't like the word?
No.
No? Why don't you like it?
Because it doesn't treat the people with disabilities with respect.
No, I would say that it's not just my opinion. If you look, for example, at the recent annual report of the Canadian Human Rights Commission, you will see that the highest number of complaints are laid by people with disabilities. So that's just not an opinion. That's a fact of discrimination. So people are not being treated fairly who have disabilities, and there are many barriers that prevent their full and equal participation in Canadian society, and as a result, people with disabilities have a disproportionate level of poverty compared to people without disabilities.
We've come a long way, but I really don't think necessarily most people do. I don't think people that know people with disabilities, I think, do. I think people that don't necessarily know them may not. And I think that it's because they present themselves a certain way, so people kind of can shun that and look down on that.
I think we treat them better than most places in the world, but we can do better.
No.
No? Why not?
They're not treated equitably. People with disabilities generally are denied access to the same privileges that people who aren't labeled as having a disability would have, such as access to information, access to programs, services, recreation.
I think the easiest way for people to treat them better is to get to know them, right? Because the people that I found that, through Stacey, that I've gotten to know some really great people, and they get it. They just understand, and it doesn't matter what the disability is then, right? Once you're part of the disability world, you get it, right? And so those around us that are touched by our kids, they tend to hopefully get it too. And those that don't, they'll never get it.
I think they've now started integrating the kids with disabilities into regular programs. I think having the kids around the children of the regular programs, I think that will give them better insight on seeing what they can and can't do.
I think don't treat them too different. Don't talk to them like you wouldn't want to be talked to. Kind of more be their role model and their friend and their peer rather than the person that's trying to tell them what to do. I think that's huge.
Give them more options, more opportunities to be out socially. They're just not included in enough things.
There would be when working in the built environment, such as outdoors, make sure that the cut curves are appropriate and that there's adequate pathways so that they don't have to share roadways with vehicles.
Mhm.
And that buildings are equipped with zero grade entrances and automatic door openers.
I would think break down some of the barriers, right? And somebody actually told me once that she is a person without a disability, but she ended up breaking both her ankles and she ended up in a wheelchair. And when somebody was helping her move her somewhere in a wheelchair, they asked somebody else, "Is this where you want to put her?" Like, she didn't even have a disability, and they treated her like a nobody because she was in a wheelchair.
Don't be that asshole that takes the wheelchair bathroom.
I think as a society and as a country, we've come a long way. Like where we were 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we're very, very different. And, people with disabilities are much more integrated into the community and are part of the community, but still, I would say very much part of the periphery, I think. I think there's kind of physically being integrated, but then there's socially being integrated, emotionally being integrated, and I don't know if we're there yet.
Oh, of course. You said every day, right? You see people saying the word retard every single day. You probably hear it about 10 times a day, using the in a wrong sense. People are misusing it. They're not using it in the way it should be used. If anything, it shouldn't be used. But you see people a lot of the time aren't comfortable around people with disabilities, so they act strange, or when they act strange, they really just bring more attention to someone who's just really like one of us.
Oh, absolutely. I've gotten into a couple power struggles with a couple staffs. I've actually quit another agency because of that. I think it was over hot chocolate. I think like this individual, she buys her own hot chocolate. She went to go make another cup of hot chocolate, and the staff was telling her no. You couldn't do that, and she had this big argument. She was like, "I hate you," and all of a sudden I was like, "Why? It's her hot chocolate. If you want to go into your kitchen, into your fridge, and make yourself an extra hot chocolate, who's gonna tell you no?"
I'll have a customer that comes in and then let's say, like there's obvious that they have some kind of disability, and then maybe one of my coworkers will be like, "Oh, what a retard," or "Well, stupid fag," or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise,
Not me personally, no.
And when you think of people,
That's not to say that it does not happen.
Yeah.
I've been
you've been,
Yeah.
what happened?
in the list that when I was at school, they were picking on me and swearing at me.
SMDs, Society for Children with Disabilities.
Cinnamon, of course. Special Ed.
Things like United Way, Special Olympics, Imaginability, all these programs that they have. There's so many different programs now, like art programs, and even like parades and festivals and things like that. They're really becoming like just a part of everything. So it's kind of cool.
Okay, well, people. I mean, I do think of Special Olympics, obviously, but I think of kind of the Association for Community Living. I think about, the Independent Living Resource Center. I think of those types of agencies and those that we work with in Special Olympics, especially like, Connect, Employment Services. There's lots of different kind of housing kind of groups that we work with.
I have to mention Vern, the Vision Impaired Resource Network, because they try to portray the positive aspects of disability, and they foster inclusion, and they're promoting that mainstream services be made accessible as opposed to services provided through a charitable model.
Dash. There's Dash, which I'm in the company.
Good.
I've seen there's McDonald Youth Services.
1, 2, 3.